Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Calicut, and thank you so much for joining the CT Sports Report today, July 20th edition, with plenty of wrestling news, especially from last night's first SmackDown Live and the WWE Draft. Before we get into things nice and heavy here, let's go ahead and remind you that you can follow us on social media at CT_Sports Report. That is CT_Sports Report. And as always, this podcast brought to you by the good folks over at 2H Brewing in Greensboro, North Carolina. That is actually my partner in crime and co-host Cody Teague, his lovely fiance Leslie, and their good friend Phil. They do a home brew out of their home, obviously, and some good craft brews. As I was telling the story the other day, I'm a tennis manager at a very nice country club, and I used my members down there as a little bit of a guinea pig. Cody was nice enough to supply a few brewskis for the folks over there, and they really, really enjoyed it. They had nothing but great things to say about it. So you can follow them on Twitter at 2H Brewing as well, and go give them a shout and pick up some home brews from them. They're making new stuff all the time, so I need to get with them to see what their new beer of the month is. They typically put out some new stuff every so often. So check them out at 2H Brewing. Check us out at CT_Sports Report for all your news that you need to know in the world of sports. And as I revealed the other day, I am going to now be working for WrestlingInc.com. I have had the opportunity to become their social media manager for the WWE brand. So that means I'll be live tweeting Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, and I'll also be following for their website live coverage for the Cruiserweight Classic and NXT on Wednesday nights. So I'll be doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night stuff with WrestlingInc.com. Please check them out. They have a fantastic podcast as well. And hopefully you might see me on there one of these days. But back to the task at hand. The SmackDown Live debuted last night on the USA Network. Very similar, I would say, format, but last night with the WWE Draft, it was very fast-paced. The 2 hours felt like it didn't last, 30 minutes. I mean, everything flew by. You were never bored. You either had a match going on, a draft pick going on, and things like that. So we won't really get into any of the matches per se on that SmackDown Live because none of them were, I would say, really, really consequential. The cool thing that I did like about the presentation, and it only happened once. I really wish it would have happened during the championship match that we will cover. And that was a picture-in-picture, a split screen. If you guys follow NASCAR or a sport that, never stops, never takes timeouts, you have seen the little split screen. You'll have the advertisement in a big screen over here, and you'll have the race or whatever your activity is going on a smaller screen over here with another ad or something below it. Now, WWE tried that out for the first time last night during the John Cena-Luke Gallows match. I absolutely loved it. I mean, that gives respect to the performers. It also gives them a little less time to rest because if you've ever attended a live event or especially a televised event, when they cut to commercial, that's when you either have some comedy stuff to take a quick rest, a couple of rest holds just to take a breather. But now you have to see that action the whole time, so that puts a little more pressure on the performers to keep things going at a good pace. But with SmackDown only being 2 hours and you want to condense a lot of stuff into that shorter time, whereas Raw is 3 hours, I think that's a really neat format to where you want to watch the rest of that action while you're watching your advertisements. And to me, that keeps more eyeballs on the television and gives the advertiser more value for their dollar. I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. Unfortunately, it only happened once. I think they sort of tested it out maybe to see who cut in, who cut out. But I really, really enjoyed that. I hope they make that a thing for the future. And who knows, we might even see it on Monday Night Raw. To the task at hand, like I said, the WWE Draft. We knew about this brand extension just about a month or so ago now. There would be unique rosters on both Raw and SmackDown, which came to light today. And you had your GMs and commissioners named this past Monday on Raw. That was Stephanie McMahon for Raw as the commissioner, and she picked Mick Foley as her general manager for the new SmackDown Live. Shane McMahon is control as commissioner, and he chose the one and only Yes Man, Daniel Bryan, as his general manager. So they had the job of picking their respective rosters last night. And your number one overall pick, no surprise here, that's sort of where they've been leaning. And if you've listened to any of the news to where Roman Reigns has been suspended for a potential wellness policy violation, and Brock Lesnar is now potentially looking at a USADA violation in congruence with his UFC fights, you wouldn't think those two would be the first off the board. Now, if both were healthy and ready to roll, and if Brock Lesnar had a full-time schedule, those are the blue chippers. Those are your top picks. But they actually fell a little bit due to those potential violations. The number one overall draft pick, which is no surprise here, that was Seth Rollins. That is number one overall to Monday Night Raw. Now, the way things worked out with Raw being 3 hours, SmackDown being 2 hours, for every 2 picks that SmackDown got, Raw would get 3. So what they did is they divided it out into rounds, and it started off with Raw, then SmackDown, Raw, SmackDown, Raw. So that would be, in essence, 1 round. So in your first round, Seth Rollins, number 1 over to Raw. Number 2, your WWE champion, and still, might I add, after a pretty nice match last night, pinned Rollins clean as a sheet, which gave a definite champion going into this Sunday's Battleground, which I thought was a nice touch. But that is Dean Ambrose, number 2 overall to SmackDown. So as of right now, SmackDown has the WWE champion on their roster. And as I flip over my list here, number 3, they really want to put this person and this division at the forefront, at least on paper. And the number 3 overall pick was the women's champion, Charlotte. She's got it in her DNA. She has improved. She has been a very good heel. I've enjoyed her work and her improvement as she's made her way to the main roster over the past year or so. But I think putting her number 3 really cements the women's division as a point of importance for that Raw show. The women's roster on SmackDown, not quite as deep, as you'll find out here in a minute. But number 3 overall to Charlotte. Number 4, another somewhat surprise here. Just 6 months ago, this guy was not even in WWE. He debuted at the Royal Rumble, pardon me. And that is AJ Styles, number 4 overall, from not being in WWE to being one of the biggest indie names, TNA star, Ring of Honor star, New Japan star. Anywhere he's been, very, very good, to the number 4 pick in the WWE Draft. And good for him. He will be going to SmackDown Live. That's a very nice staple, a good worker, a good personality to go to SmackDown, and will also allow him to continue a couple of feuds he has going. Number 5, your first pick from NXT. As noted in the rules, 6 picks from NXT were to be made tonight, and this was your first pick, and number 5 overall, former NXT champion Finn Balor. It did surprise me that he went this high. I figured he would be the number 1 NXT pick, but I thought maybe 10, 12, 15 overall, that range. I did not think that they would go ahead and pick him out of the bunch. But this sort of tells you that they may have something in mind for him, that he's going to be a staple on the main roster. Now, he is under that 200-pound threshold. So with Raw, and I forgot to say that Finn Balor is going to Raw, that Raw is unveiling a new cruiserweight division here shortly, and Finn does fall below that 205 benchmark for the cruiserweights. So it would not surprise me if he is the main person that they build that division around. But it also could mean that they have big plans for him, as a single star push for, the other championships as well, that they're not going to pigeonhole him as that cruiserweight. Number 6 overall, and your first pick in round number 2, And if you look at this, I think they kind of flipped round 1 and round 2 based on the violations that we spoke about earlier with Lesnar and Reigns. Number 6 overall, first pick for Raw in round 2 is Roman Reigns. No surprise that he goes in the top 10. If that violation doesn't show up and he's probably still champion, you probably think he goes number 1, but drops to number 6 here. Number 7 is going to be your face of SmackDown Live, the one and only John Cena. John Cena, number 7. Not number 1, not number 2, number 7. And the announcers made an interesting point that he is going to take a lesser schedule. He has a lot of stuff going on. He hosts a variety of programs now. He has a lot of endorsements, a lot of entertainment deals, and probably will not be working house shows quite as often as he has in the past. So Brock Lesnar. John Cena is number 7 going to SmackDown. And the aforementioned AJ Styles on SmackDown as well. So I believe you'll see that feud continue and hopefully culminate at SummerSlam in August. Number 8, the Beast, Brock Lesnar, the Streak Buster, Brock Lesnar, mayor of Suplex City. Now you may call him the mayor of Supplement City, since his violations, potential alleged violations for the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, like I said, with the UFC fight at UFC 200, in which he won. But lots of variables going on there with that pick. But Raw gets a big star, even though he's a part-timer. It depends on what they do with him with a possible suspension and that kind of thing. As far as we know, the SummerSlam event with Randy Orton is still on. And speaking of Randall Keith Orton, he is the number 9 pick going to SmackDown Live. So SmackDown is top-heavy so far. You've got Cena, Styles, and Orton all going to SmackDown, as well as the WWE champion Ambrose. So top-heavy, yes, the depth may not be quite as far down, but very top-heavy, very star-laden at the top. So that's good to see. It seems like they're putting a little bit of effort into this to at least give this Tuesday night thing a chance to succeed. Number 10 and the last pick in round 2, the power of positivity, the New Day. Glad to see these guys did not split up. I think when they do split up, that Big E has a big chance to make a big splash as a single star. And, you know, you saw flashes of brilliance before he joined the New Day when he was sidelined with AJ Lee and Dolph Ziggler about 3 or 4 years ago. He's got a lot of potential. He's a big guy that can talk, extremely athletic, can move around in the ring. So whenever those guys split up, I see him as a potential single star. And Xavier Woods has really come out of his shell here lately in the program with the Wyatt family. So really enjoy those guys. Kofi Kingston has been a mainstay for many, many years. I think since about 2005 he's been with the WWE. Always a tremendous talent. So good to see those guys stay together, at least for the time being. And they are still your WWE Tag Team Champions. And they are going to Raw. Round number 3. A little bit of a surprise here. I was listening to some people say they thought this guy would be a top 10 pick, or that he might even go to the untelevised draft at the bottom of the hour or the end of the SmackDown program. That is Sami Zayn, the underdog from the underground, as they are calling him now. The former El Generico, which is one of the best ring names ever. Basically trolling the entire wrestling community with that name back in the day. But Sami Zayn, a very good face, a very good worker that can sell, that can make other people look good, but also has his own little bit of star power and panache as well. So Sami Zayn going number 11 to Monday Night Raw. Number 12, very good pick here, I believe, and separated from his family, and that is Bray Wyatt. Number 12 to SmackDown Live, Bray Wyatt. He is separated from the Wyatt family. He was drafted as a singles person and not as a tag team, which to me, could either go one of two ways. Either he will get lost in the shuffle again, or they will actually put a renewed emphasis on him going forward for SmackDown, because you need one of those guys. And with the names that you've already seen come out, Orton could be a tweener, heel, face, doesn't matter. Cena's always going to be a face. Styles is currently a heel, and then Ambrose is a face. So you could really go either way with Bray Wyatt. I think he could be a very good face-type cult leader of the masses. That's kind of where they originally went with this character, but not really full-fledged yet. So hopefully they let the reins off of him, pardon the pun. So Bray Wyatt, number 12 to SmackDown Live. Number 13, unlucky 13, lucky 13, depending on how you look at it. That is Sasha Banks. She goes to Monday Night Raw. So she will stay in the program with Charlotte, which I would assume would also come to a head at SummerSlam. I would assume Sasha gets her moment of love and championship gold at SummerSlam. So she will be on Monday Night Raw. And the first women's pick for SmackDown Live comes at number 14, and that's Becky Lynch. I guess she will become, the quote-unquote face of SmackDown's women's division. That division does fill out a little bit as we get farther down. But she, I think, would be the biggest person right now to give that division a good jump start and hopefully thrive down there on SmackDown. So I was questioning before the draft that, are they going to split the women's division or not? Apparently they are. So Becky Lynch, number 14 to SmackDown Live. Number 15, thought this was actually a little high, but a veteran that has been in the business for, golly, probably 20 years now, and that is Chris Jericho. If he's going to stay around, I like this pick. But Jericho has been so in and out lately that it's tough to really gauge where you want him. I mean, he's there to help put over the new guys and to work with those guys that need a little bit of seasoning with their craft. So Chris Jericho, number 15 to Monday Night Raw. And let's take this time again to remind you that you can follow 2H Brewing. Again, 2H Brewing on Twitter at 2H Brewing. Good homebrew stuff, as well as you can follow us on Twitter at CT_Sports Report, and make sure to follow Wrestling Inc., which you can find me on Monday and Tuesday nights on their Twitter at Wrestling Inc., Wrestling INC, and on their website on Wednesday nights for the Cruiserweight Classic and NXT. All right, moving over to round number 4, number 16 pick overall, the United States champion, Rusev. And he does come as a package deal with his fiance and manager, Lana. And to counteract that, SmackDown Live took at number 17 the Intercontinental Champion with his valet and manager and wife, The Miz, with Maurice. So you kind of went tit for tat there with those picks. This is sort of the point of the draft where you start filling out your roster a little bit more. The star power is a little bit gone already. And number 18, which I thought was super low for this guy, has been a fantastic character on television, can work well with anybody in the ring, and that is Kevin Owens. He's been absolutely hilarious. He is a fantastic heel. Actually a pretty good face as well if you go back and look at some of his other work before WWE. But Kevin Owens at number 18 for Monday Night Raw. Excuse me. He gets to stay on the same brand as Sami Zayn. You thought they were going to get split up, but no. They get put together again. I don't think their fighting will ever end. I almost hope that we get sort of an odd couple tag team out of them, because I think that'd be kind of a fun story and would also give Sami a little personality to work with, as Kevin is that big personality. Number 19, going to SmackDown Live. Thought this was a little high for this guy, and that's NXT's, or formerly of NXT, Baron Corbin. He has been up. He came up on WrestleMania weekend and won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and really hasn't done a ton since. He had a feud with Dolph Ziggler, which lacked luster, to be kind of generous, to be honest. But Baron Corbin, he improved quite a bit in his last 6 months in NXT. Hopefully, being drafted this high, they give him something to do over on SmackDown, and he will continue his improvement. Number 20, again, thought this was kind of low, but another entertaining tag team goes to Monday Night Raw, being Enzo and Cass. And I pretty much stood up and cheered that they did not split these guys up. It was one of my fears that they would split up Enzo and Cass, because Cass is probably going to be a future world champion, or at least future top of the card guy. And Enzo, being a smaller guy but can talk his way out of anything, he's by far the best talker in WWE right now, in my opinion. So they stay together and go to number 20. That concludes round 4. Whew. Let's get through these. Only about a third of the way done, guys. So I'll run those bottom ones pretty quickly, but I want to get through at least the televised rounds, which was through pick number 30. Round number 5, Gallows and Anderson, the Club, to Raw, which means they are split up from their leader, AJ Styles, who's over at SmackDown. In a way, I like this move because Finn Balor is on Raw. He's been teasing the Balor Club for quite a while. So could they be a top of the card faction on Monday Night Raw? I believe so. But that also could leave them out in the weather and pretty much sink toward the middle or bottom of the card, even though those guys are fantastic workers and are absolutely hilarious when you let the chains off of them. Originally they brought them in, they were super scripted, kind of bland, but when they let them loose, the club in and of itself, even with AJ Styles, has been very, very entertaining. The ringside banter, the promos, adding ski to everything, a little flight ski over to beat up John Cena, as they were saying a couple of weeks ago on Raw. Here's one of my favorite picks in the whole draft. Number 22 to SmackDown Live, NXT's next pick, American Alpha. So happy for these guys. Jason Jordan in particular. Chad Gable is sort of a new guy on the scene to wrestling. He's only been in NXT in the Performance Center for just a couple years, really. And Jason Jordan has been down there since it was FCW. He was on the very first inception of the FCW program that was just aired in Florida, and you would have to search on YouTube to hopefully find it with 10 people attending. Jordan is a fantastic talent, an amateur wrestler, as is Chad Gable, who apparently represented the United States in the Olympics at one point or another. But these guys have so much charisma, so much talent. I'm ready for them to take over the tag scene on SmackDown, and they are really the first true tag team drafted to SmackDown at this point in the draft. Number 23, I guess they have to keep him relevant to possibly go into a feud with Shaquille O'Neal going into WrestleMania next year in Orlando. That's the Big Show. He's 40-plus years old now. His best years are behind him, but can still work with a lot of people, still has that dominant figure, but he changes heel and face like nobody's business. We'll see how his trend goes in the coming months. Number 24, I thought was a value pick here. Dolph Ziggler going to SmackDown Live. Big Show going to Raw, by the way. SmackDown Live at 24 going with Dolph Ziggler. Again, a guy that can make anybody look like $1 million, can work with a broomstick and make it look good. And that's really what he's been relegated to. He's been taking out a lot of the title pictures unless he's booked to lose, just to give it a little credibility, kind of. But Dolph Ziggler at number 24. Number 25, which I thought was a tremendous surprise and probably may or may not should have been drafted, and that is NXT's Nia Jax. Now, she's got the Samoan heritage. She's, distant cousins with The Rock. So read into that what you will. But she is still also very new to wrestling. Has been on NXT TV for probably just under a year. And has had some decent matches, but really need somebody that is seasoned and knows what they're doing to assist her through those matches. I'm really hoping that she comes up and does well. She's a bigger girl, a built girl who is a dominant figure. They'll probably book her similar to how they booked Karma or Awesome Kong, ever how you want to declare her when she was in WWE and TNA. She is that type of person. She's very powerful, but she's also overly produced and overly scripted. I think, too, that she would have a good personality if she came into her own and was given a little bit of leeway with her character. So we'll see if Nia Jax does well, but she goes to Monday Night Raw via the way of NXT. Number 26, I thought it was a nice pick here. The returning Neville for Monday Night Raw. And I assume he's going to head up their cruiserweight division. It will be a nice touch there. They finally found something for him to do. They gave him an interview on the Second Screen Experience on the WWE Network, as they did, the majority of the draft picks. But Neville going number 26 to Raw. Number 27 to SmackDown, Natalya. So she stays on the same brand as Becky Lynch, who she's currently feuding with. So that feud will continue as we go along. Natalya, a great in-ring veteran who can, again, work with somebody like some of the folks that I will say here in just a minute. But good to see her on SmackDown, where hopefully women's wrestling will also stay relevant as well. Number 28, and I do mean way too low, Cesaro. This guy has been underutilized by the WWE since he got there. He needs a world title run of some semblance. If they do a second world title, put him in there. At least give him in the ballpark. I mean, my goodness. This guy is so good, and yet they've done so little with him. And what I absolutely loved is they interviewed him on the Second Screen Experience on the network, and he looked pissed. I mean, straight up, he was mad. He did not want to be drafted to Monday Night Raw, and he thought sure as heck he should not have been all the way down in the 6th round at 28. He was visibly frustrated, pretty much said that the storyline should not revolve around the bantering and arguing between the GM and the commissioner like Stephanie and Mick Foley, which that's why they got Mick Foley. He's a face, Stephanie's a heel. There's going to be some tension there. So that's going to be part of that program. And he said SmackDown was supposedly going to be the quote-unquote wrestling show where the focus was on the superstars themselves and the in-ring product. And that's where he wanted to be. So he was disappointed to not be drafted by SmackDown, and basically was shooting or non-storyline talking about the draft and how disappointed he was in the direction that he is possibly going. Good to see some passion, but also sad to see that disappointment for somebody who is that talented. Number 29, a value pick here, I believe, going to SmackDown. That's Alberto Del Rio. He will be heading to the Blue brand, where he got his start initially. It seemed as if he was kind of not truly happy about going to SmackDown. But I think he'll have a nice home there and find plenty of work with the guys over on the Blue brand. So 29, Alberto Del Rio. And the last pick for television on the 2-hour SmackDown Live at number 30, Sheamus. Everybody was thinking a big bombshell pick here, and Sheamus was your last televised pick to absolute crickets. There may have been 2 or 3 boos somewhere mixed in, but I really couldn't tell. Just a couple of people got mad at me on the Wrestling Inc. Twitter for basically saying that he came out to crickets for that draft pick. But again, everybody's expecting kind of a big bombshell because that was the last televised pick, and you thought maybe a Bayley or an Asuka or a Nakamura or, a big NXT name, a big return, something like that. No such luck. Number 30 is Sheamus. All righty. Let's run down the rest of these really quickly. About 29 more picks. Again, there were supposed to be 60 picks. Only 59 were technically announced. We'll see how that ends up falling out. with a funny story here in just a moment as well. Round number 7, 31. Golden Truth, they stay together as a tag team. Number 32, going to SmackDown, the Usos. That'll help beef up that tag division with American Alpha. Number 33, going to Raw, Titus O'Neil. Number 34, Demon Kane, going to SmackDown Live. That makes me wonder, where does Corporate Kane go? Or does SmackDown get double the pick for just that one pick? I hope we don't find that out. Hopefully Corporate Kane is gone for good. Paige at number 35 going to Raw. So she is split up from her current boyfriend, Alberto Del Rio, who is at SmackDown. Round number 8, Darren Young with Bob Backlund. I thought this was a nice pick at number 36 going to Monday Night Raw, with him potentially going for the championship, the Intercontinental Championship, this Sunday at Battleground versus The Miz. Excuse me. Number 37, Kalisto going to SmackDown, which I thought was a weird pick because you would think he would be one of the big guys in the Cruiserweight division on Raw. That is actually going to go to number 38, his former partner, Sin Cara. So Kalisto hopefully is well-rounded enough that he can work with just about anybody, or he's there to make the bigger guys look better. Who knows? Sin Cara hopefully will get some traction on the Cruiserweight division on Raw, and we'll see how that rolls out. But again, Kalisto and Sin Cara split up as a tag team. They actually announced that they were going their separate ways before the draft. Naomi, SmackDown, going at 39. Nice pick to deepen the women's roster. Number 40, Jack Swagger going to Raw. Number 41, I guess you can call this filling out the tag roster on the SmackDown. The Ascension, who had a pretty funny comedy bit on Monday Night Raw. Hopefully they don't get pigeonholed into that comedy role, because those guys were a dominant force in NXT, and hopefully they can sort of refine that dominance into the main roster and sort of get a reboot as they move to SmackDown. Round number 9, 42, the Dudley Boys stay together as a tag team going to Monday Night Raw. And 43, Zack Ryder going to SmackDown, who is in contention for the U.S. Championship on Sunday at Battleground versus Rusev. Number 44, Summer Rae, deepens the women's roster there. Number 45, a value pick here for SmackDown. That's Apollo Crews. Hopefully, I think since his debut has kind of got lost in the shuffle a bit, I'm hoping that he finds something to do over at SmackDown. I think that's a better home for him, especially he's not the best promo guy. So with that 2-hour time frame, he can just get in the ring, get out, doesn't have to talk a ton, and just let the character speak for itself in the ring. Number 46 to Monday Night Raw, the world's strongest man, Mark Henry. Don't think you'll see him around too much longer. Retirement has been in the cards for him for a couple years now. Not sure when his contract runs out, but I wouldn't expect to see him on TV a ton. Number 47, and I really, really like this pick. Number 47 going to SmackDown Live via NXT, Alexa Bliss. She has been one of the most improved performers in the entire WWE in the past 2 years. She came in as a sort of bodybuilder type fitness model and was really fairly new to wrestling when she got there. And she has done a tremendous job on NXT, building her character as a solo act when she broke away from Blake and Murphy, came in with a great new heel attitude, kind of did something similar to what Emma did, reinvented herself a little bit, and has been a tremendous performer for the last 6 months or so. Really glad to see her get a shot on SmackDown in the women's division there. Round number 10, number 48, Braun Strowman. As mentioned earlier, Big Show is on Raw. So I believe you will get a Big Show Braun Strowman feud at some point, especially if they have to prepare Big Show for the Shaquille O'Neal match or vice versa. So I think you'll see that match at some point. But Braun Strowman left out to dry on Monday Night Raw as Bray Wyatt goes to SmackDown. Breezango, number 49 in round 10, going to SmackDown Live. I really enjoy these guys' work. They're hilarious. They're both really good wrestlers, have been for a long time. I was a big fan of Tyler Breeze when he was in NXT. Fandango was good as Johnny Curtis before he became Fandango. Has always been a really good worker. So I hope those guys are given a chance to succeed on SmackDown Live. And then you have the saddest news of the night, in my opinion. The Social Outcasts get broken up, at least temporarily. Bo Dallas, as a single, is drafted at number 50 to Monday Night Raw. And they had some pretty funny vignettes backstage with them basically not going to Raw as a team and Bo Dallas getting the call by himself. Excuse me. And here's the stinker of the draft at number 51. I guess she's going to have to change from all red everything to all blue everything because she's going to SmackDown. Number 51, Eva Marie. Or as I call her, the heat seeker. Because she gets go-away heat. She doesn't get cheap heat, not just regular cheap heat. She doesn't get, emotional heat. It's go away. Please go away. And I was really hoping that she would not be eligible for this draft. Hopefully she would stay in NXT, if anything, because their women's roster is going to be fairly depleted after this. But she's going to SmackDown Live at number 51. Number 52, the Shining Stars. Epico Primo, the former Los Matadors are now repackaged as the Puerto Ricans called the Shining Stars. They are going to Monday Night Raw at number 52. Number 53 on SmackDown, the Vaudevillains. This was kind of low, but I think that was for a reason. There was rumor of Simon Gotch and Sin Cara getting in a fight in catering last night during the tapings or before the tapings. So that may have had a little something to do with the Vaudevillains dropping that far down on the board. Round 11 and the final round of the draft. Number 54, a great pick here for Monday Night Raw, Alicia Fox. She has been one of those girls that has been underutilized for WWE for a long, long time. She is probably one of the most athletic divas on the roster and has worked with the best of the best and really has never been given that many opportunities. So really glad to see her drafted to Monday Night Raw. Eric Rowan of the Wyatt family will be joining Bray Wyatt as a singles competitor on SmackDown Live. So we'll see if their relationship continues in some form or fashion as the Blue Brand goes live on Tuesday nights. Number 56, Charlotte's protege, Dana Brooke, going to Monday Night Raw to stay on the same program as Charlotte. Number 57, Mojo Rawley goes to SmackDown Live via NXT. Mojo, I've never been the biggest fan of, perfectly honest. Sort of reckless, kind of big in the ring, kind of goes full speed, but I mean that's his style. Sure, his saying is, "I don't get hyped, I stay hyped." So that kind of thing it could possibly work on the main roster. He's awesome with kids. He's awesome with the crowd. He could be one of those guys that goes to your fundraisers, your Make-A-Wish deals. He's a super good guy. I've heard nothing but good things about him, and I came to garner a new respect for him on the documentary called Breaking Ground on the WWE Network. You can tell he likes what he does. He loves the business and wants to see himself and others succeed. And if you remember, he and Zack Ryder, who are now together on SmackDown, formed a tag team in NXT called the Hype Bros. So it would not surprise me one bit after Zack Ryder gets done with his feud with Rusev that he and Mojo Rawley will rejoin forces to join as the Hype Bros. Number 58, Curtis Axel of the Social Outcast joins his former partner, Bo Dallas, on to Raw at number 58. Another guy, again, tons of talent, has found nothing for him to do. Let's hope there's a little traction there as he gets moved to Monday Night Raw. And number 59, and the last announced pick from NXT, another favorite of mine who has improved dramatically in the ring and on the microphone, and that is Carmella. She's going to SmackDown Live and disappointingly not going to the same brand as Enzo and Cass. And she is actually in a relationship with Big Cass, so she will be on separate tours from her boyfriend. So that may not make those two real happy, but that is how the cookie crumbled. And that is your WWE Draft, ladies and gentlemen. 59 total picks. No trades have happened yet. Excuse me, I got a little fly going around me here. Funny story. There may have been one social outcast and one in particular redheaded West Virginian rock band that, did not get drafted. And that was Heath Slater. You can tell that WWE actually really likes Heath Slater as a comedy character. As they went off the air, they panned over to, I guess, the green room, the draft room per se. Heath Slater's there by himself. Didn't get picked. They turned the lights out. They weren't Motel 6. They didn't leave the lights on for him. They turned the lights all the way out, and he basically was crying and took us off the air with that. So I hope his new gimmick is that he shows up to every single show, Raw, SmackDown, Main Event, Superstars, heck, even NXT, that's his new gimmick. He just shows up and wants a spot anywhere and just gets mutilated every time he shows up. I think that'd be hilarious, but that's one guy that I think they should give another shot to on television in some form or fashion. Some other notable undrafted free agents, I guess you could call them. Some of them are injured. Most of them are injured, actually. That is Emma and Luke Harper, especially. Luke Harper actually sent out a tweet that's basically saying thank you and see you soon, which may not bode well for him, which is absolutely disappointing because next to Bray Wyatt, and honestly probably above Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper is the best wrestler in that group by far. Fantastic worker, gave him a good personality as well. So I really like Luke Harper. I hope that he is not released or quits in any semblance. Also, a couple of big names that you were expecting maybe to see and did not, and that was Bayley. Bayley of NXT's women division has been the leader of that division since Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha were brought up and has always been extremely popular, both really with the main roster type fans and the NXT type fans. I think she could be the John Cena of the women's division moving forward, and I think there is a reason she did not get drafted. I believe she is going to possibly be Sasha Banks' mystery partner at Battleground to take on Dana Brooke and Charlotte. And I'm hoping that her debut, now that she did not get drafted, becomes even more special and more important when she makes a big splash into the main roster. Now, of all those picks, you can find the complete rosters on WrestlingInc.com, also WWE.com. And I think I retweeted a couple of things for the CT Sports Report as well in regards to who's on which brand. So go on those websites, take a look at those rosters, and tell me who you think the best roster is. In my opinion, I think at the top of the card, you have a little more strength on SmackDown. But if you look at depth, and obviously with 3 picks versus 2 picks, this is going to naturally happen. But I think you have more star power as you go down the line on Monday Night Raw. So it's tough to declare, a quote-unquote winner because you have to look at what each brand really wants to accomplish. I think Raw got more of your flamboyant, seasoned, entertainment-style performers, whereas SmackDown may have gotten a few more of your wrestlers and your lower card guys that maybe need a second chance. So it's tough to really pick a winner. I hope the best for both brands. Say that 3 times fast, and we'll see how everything shakes out here in a few months. I'm really interested to see what the rating is for the SmackDown. Hopefully it'll come out this afternoon, and I'll be sure to possibly retweet that on the Wrestling Inc. and the CT Sports Report Twitter accounts as well. Now, of the NXT call-ups, again, the obvious miss was Bayley, and the obvious pick was Finn Balor. Mojo Rawley, a bit of a surprise. Carmella, a bit of a surprise. Alexa Bliss, I think, is ready. I was glad to see her. Nia Jax, again, a little bit of a surprise. We'll see how she does, and we'll go from there. Now, if you look at the card at Battleground and the way the rosters were drafted, every single championship could possibly end up on Raw after Battleground. And for heaven's sake, I hope not. But that is the way it could potentially end up. I'm sure they will either make some new titles, split some titles like the WWE Championship. They may bring back the World Heavyweight title. They will probably put the U.S. on one, the Intercontinental on the other. Not sure what they're going to do with the tag teams, whether they're going to make 2 tag team titles or 2 women's titles. That is yet to be seen. So we will see what they do with all the championships. But the way the card is stacked, we could see all the current championships end up on Raw after Battleground. Now, not only were the rosters for the performers switched up a little bit, the commentators were switched up as well. Your new commentary team for Monday Night Raw, Michael Cole, the newly acquired Corey Graves, who is fantastic on NXT. I am so glad to see him get a chance on the main roster, and Byron Saxton, who has worked with Corey Graves for quite a while and has obviously been on Raw with Michael Cole for some time now. So I think that's going to be a really good thing. I think Cole has to go as your announcer tweener. Graves is now your heel, and Byron is your pure face, as he's always been. SmackDown is Mauro Ranallo as the lead play-by-play. JBL comes in as, I guess, your straight heel announcer. I'm not sure how the Mauro and JBL dynamic will work. JBL has not been great lately. He has been very repetitive and very much Vince McMahon's earpiece or mouthpiece via his earpiece. So we'll see how that goes. And then their new commentator for SmackDown is David Otunga, who's actually been doing some nice work on Main Event and Superstars if you watch those programs. You may have noticed one in particular name that was left out. That is Jerry the King Lawler. If you remember, Lawler was arrested, but the charges were dropped on a domestic violence dispute just a month or so ago. He was reinstated after the charges were dropped, but he is also 66 years old. Now, I really, really, really enjoyed him as a heel again with Mauro Ranallo, but he has been left out of the commentary teams at this point in time. Tom Phillips, who has been doing good work on NXT, is now going to be your lead announcer for Main Event and Superstars, and he will be joined by Corey Graves and Corey Graves and Byron Saxton, I believe, or maybe David Otunga on the other. I'll have to go back and double check that. But not only were these programs cast on the network, on USA Network only, look around any big sports site. ESPN had a full-page breakdown of the WWE Draft. And if you remember me back in the day when this podcast started, I think it was WrestleMania 30 with the Daniel Bryan story being at hand at that point in time, WWE was starting to get more mainstream coverage. And that was due partly to Brock Lesnar and the sort of crossover type athlete that he is. But ESPN had a full spread feature on the WWE Draft, as well as CBSSports.com. I'm not sure if Fox typically does. The Sporting News typically does. So you're seeing so much mainstream coverage now. And John Cena ended up joining ESPN during their 10 o'clock hour Sports Center to hype the draft and hype the new SmackDown Live. So you're seeing a lot of crossover now. The prediction I made a couple years ago is coming into fruition. And you saw that with John Cena being the host of the ESPYs. And I need to go back and watch that. But from what everything that I've heard is he actually done a pretty nice job. So good to see that. Good to see a little crossover action in between the mainstream sports and WWE to keep the WWE more relevant and get more eyes on the product. But that concludes my coverage of the WWE Draft. As a reminder, join us on Twitter on all things sports at CT_sports report. Again, follow Cody and the crew at 2H Brewing on Twitter. And follow me on Wrestling Inc. at Wrestling Inc. on Monday and Tuesday nights for Raw and SmackDown, and on their website for NXT and the Cruiserweight Classic. Live coverage and viewing parties. All you have to do is sign up. It's free. Make a Discus account, and you can follow in on the live viewing party there. So I hope to see you in one place or another. Thanks so much for joining me today for coverage of the WWE Draft. Again, my name is Chris Callicutt. This is the CT Sports Report. We will see you down the line.